What's up everyone, it's Nicole and it is time for another PC case review. This, my friends, is the Tecware Quad PC Case. This case is so beautiful in my opinion, and I think it has got less hype about it than it really deserves. Whilst they call it cube, you can see that it is not exactly equal dimension, all corners and all sides, but nonetheless is definitely one case that is airflow optimized in its design and has one of the largest pre-installed fans I've ever seen in a micro ATX PC case. This case is available in black or white. I've got the white one here mainly because I feel that the white color accentuates the squarish cutouts really well and has a distinction between the metal panel as well as the side tempered glass panels. And this case measures 370mm by 280mm and 350mm tall. The cutout design panel in the front is an extension from the case. There is a wide gap between it before you get to the full mesh front panel of the case. This mesh is secured magnetically and is removable, so you can conveniently remove it to clean. To note, this mesh is not made of flimsy, thin quality and doesn't have two big holes, and I really like that. Behind the mesh panel lies the pre-installed 200mm fan. This is really a huge fan, positioned to intake air into the case. Having intake fans at the front of the case is also great because you won't be getting hot air blowing out next to you when you're working your PC hard. If we look at the side panels, this is where it's also interesting. Unlike a typical PC case where you have a glass panel on one side and the other side being an area to hide all your ugly wiring, this case has tempered glass panels on both sides. And this is absolutely great because traditionally the glass panel is always positioned on the left side panel. Means it's awkward if you have to place the PC on the left of your desk instead of the right, else you won't be able to see the glass panel and whatever's in there. But in this case, it gives you complete flexibility which side of your desk you want to have this PC on. To remove either of the tempered glass panels, all you have to do is to unscrew the two screws at the rear and slide it backwards to remove the panels. On the top, the panel is also removable the same way you would do the tempered glass side panels, simply by unscrewing a single screw at the rear and slide the panel backwards to remove it. Underneath the cutout top panel is another magnetic mesh panel, which helps to keep dust out of your case. Also on the top, for I/O, you have a large on-off switch. This little button, I'm not sure what it does, I believe it's the reset button, a headset jack and a microphone jack, and two USB 3.0 ports. Moving on to the rear, you have this hexagonal cutouts where the pre-installed 120mm fan is. This cutout design is not available anywhere else of this case, so I'm a bit curious why it's there. But aside from that, I do like hexagonal design, so that's fine. The same goes for the 4 PCIe slots. It has rows of diagonal oval cutouts, not quite sure why it's different from all the other cutout designs on this case, but it's not really a big deal. There are also small circular cutouts for the section where the storage drives are. So in short, at the rear, it is as exposed as it can get. Now usually I don't talk much about the bottom of the case, but it is nice to know that there are cutouts at the bottom for the area where your power supply fans would be. And these cutouts have another magnetic mesh panel to keep it dust free too. So this case also features 4 little rounded legs, not too tall, but enough to prop it sufficiently for the power supply to intake fresh air. Now moving on to compatibility, this case supports both micro ATX and mini ITX motherboards, and ATX power supply with maximum length of 200mm. For GPU, this case takes up to GPU length of 315mm, so make sure your GPU is compatible before you get this case. Next up for fans, this case has two pre-installed fans, the 200mm fan in the front and the 120mm fan in the rear. You can choose to add two more 120mm fans on the top, That's where you have your radiator for AIO cooler as well, which supports for a single 120mm radiator or 240mm radiator. For storage, there is a storage cage at the bottom to hold up to 4 3.5-inch hard drives or 4 2.5-inch storage drives. Well, I really enjoyed building this case mainly because it didn't feel atypical. Externally, I like how this case looks. You can feel how thick and solid the steel structure of this case is, which gives a feel of premium. For a micro ATX case, this case really does a lot. First, the airflow design is just awesome. A huge 200mm fan to be intaking fresh air to be exhausted from the top, from the rear. Over here, we have 220mm fan mount on the top together with the air radiator. And then there are the mesh dust panels everywhere where there's a cutout to keep your PC as clean as possible. And this is really great. I also like that for a micro ATX case, we don't really have to compromise storage, because this can be very limiting for people who are upgrading their PC builds and have accumulated hard drives over time. Apart from that, the dual tempered glass panel is also really cool. You can position it anywhere on your desk. Very often I'm very torn between, having my PC on the right of my desk, but it really makes more sense to shift it to the left because of the layout of my desk, but the case doesn't support that. So this really gives the flexibility without ending up looking awkward. Now, another thing that's important to me is accessing the inside of the case. I do that quite often because I want to tweak little things here and there, and having the accessibility to do it without tools is very important. So for this case, it's quite easy. You just unscrew the big knob screws at the back and just slide the panels up open. And with this design of the case, it also smartly lays the motherboard at the bottom, so that showcasing your GPU vertically doesn't require any riser cable and can be connected to the motherboard directly. And this fixes all that riser cable phobia about mounting your GPU vertically and incorporating the use of riser cables. And talking about the motherboard in this position, because both the side panels on the left and right can be removed to access the motherboard that is laid down in the middle, this position of the motherboard is my favorite so far, where it's completely accessible to plug in all the plugs you need onto your motherboard. Most PC cases, we would turn the PC case lying down so that we can place the motherboard straight down, and then we try to plug everything in. And the challenge is that going in one direction from the top to access and plug in all the plugs, it's not as simple. And in this case, we have it lying down and two hands coming up from both angles. Even the top is exposed for us to access from. So it's three-dimensional to connect everything to the motherboard. I've never experienced this. For me, this has got to be the first for me, and I really like it. Now, if I have to ask for one thing only to make this case perfect for me, and that would be to have a USB Type-C in the I/O panel in the front. To be honest, Type-C, USB Type-C is available in the motherboard, which we can access from the rear. But then, I still love gaming with controllers, and many times I ended up having to charge my Xbox controller while I play, and it would be a lot simpler and more accessible if the port were available in the front. Overall, I see these as Tecware's another attempt to bring us quality products at very, very reasonable prices. This case retails for about 99 Singapore dollars, and that's in simple conversion about 70-ish US dollars for a micro ATX case that can do so much. And if we look at the exterior design, I really like this. I'm just very surprised that there was so little hype about this case. It's been launched for quite a period now, but I don't see a lot of people talking about it. I should have done it more justice by fixing up the cable management and before doing more shorts on it. But cable management is really my least favorite thing in a PC build. If I have to choose between two micro ATX cases based on their aesthetic feel of how they will look on my desk when I do a setup, I would feel that this one would be a close match up against the Lianli O11 Dynamic Mini for me, personally. Mainly because of how it looks externally and how I like it looking on my desk. Although the Lianli O11 Dynamic Mini sports a lot more options for fans. But to be honest, if I've got a 200mm gigantic fan sitting in the front and 3 more fans to exhaust air from, I think this case is good as well. And given the fact that this is probably half the price of the O11 Dynamic Mini. I have done a review video on the O11 Dynamic Mini as well, so if you go back to my Gaming Gears playlist, you will be able to find it there. Otherwise, I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on this one because I feel good about it. So do share in the comments and I'll be looking forward to that. In the meantime, the biggest support you can give to us is by subscribing to our channel, and that would be very much appreciated. Now, thanks so much for being with us on this one, and I will see you in the next.